Imagine a guy who seemed just there. Not the class clown, not the jock, not even the obvious outcast. Just quiet. A bit awkward. The kind of person who fades into the background. Now imagine that same quiet, awkward man was hiding a literal chamber of horrors in his apartment, responsible for the unspeakable deaths of 17 young men. That's the chilling reality of Jeffrey Dahmer, often called the Milwaukee Cannibal. Today, we're going to pull back the curtain on one of the most disturbing cases in modern history. We'll explore Jeffrey Dahmer's unsettling early life, the quiet escalation of his dark fantasies, the horrific pattern of his crimes, and the heartbreaking missed opportunities by authorities that allowed him to continue. It's a story that highlights not just a monster, but also the societal blind spots that let him thrive in plain sight. Jeffrey Lionel Dahmer was born on May 21, 1960, in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. His early childhood wasn't outwardly tragic in the way some serial killers are. His parents, Lionel and Joyce, were educated, but their marriage was rocky. From a young age, Jeffrey displayed some really unsettling fascinations. He was a kid who was interested in collecting roadkill, dissecting them, and even bleaching their bones. Most kids are playing with action figures. As he got older, the family tension grew. His mother, Joyce, struggled with mental health issues and depression, and his father, Lionel, was often absorbed in his chemistry studies. Jeffrey largely felt neglected. He became incredibly withdrawn and socially awkward. By his mid-teens, he developed a significant alcohol problem, often drinking in school. It seemed like his way of coping, or maybe fueling what was brewing inside. He struggled to connect with peers, often isolated. And then came the truly dark shift. By his early teens, he was admitting to intense fantasies of dominating and controlling men, and these fantasies started to intertwine with dissection. This wasn't just typical teenage angst. This was a mind drifting into a truly disturbing place. You can just imagine this quiet kid, alone in his thoughts, and those thoughts getting darker and darker. Jeffrey graduated high school in 1978. His parents were in the middle of a messy divorce, and shortly after he finished school, they essentially left him alone in the family home. Just imagine that, an 18-year-old with a severe drinking problem, and these deeply twisted fantasies, suddenly given an empty house to himself. It was a recipe for disaster. And that disaster struck quickly. Just weeks after graduation, in June 1978, Dahmer picked up 18-year-old hitchhiker Stephen Hicks. He lured Hicks back to the house, offering beers. When Hicks wanted to leave, Dahmer couldn't stand the thought of losing control. He bludgeoned Hicks with a 10-pound dumbbell, then strangled him. This wasn't just a murder, it was a desperate act of possession. He dismembered Hicks' body, dissolved some of the flesh in acid, and scattered the bones. It's truly horrifying to think about. What's wild is that after Hicks, Dahmer didn't kill again for nearly 9 years. He went to college briefly, dropped out due to alcoholism, joined the army, and was dishonorably discharged for drinking. He spent time with his grandmother in West Allis, Wisconsin. But even during this hiatus, the fantasies didn't go away. He was still going to gay bars, still drinking heavily, still struggling to connect. The quiet monster was just dormant, not gone. In September 1987, the killing resumed with Stephen Twomey. Dahmer picked him up at a bar, took him to a hotel, and later claimed he woke up to find Stephen dead, with no memory of the killing itself. From this point, the killings became more frequent, especially once he moved into his infamous apartment in Milwaukee in 1990. Dahmer's method was sickeningly consistent. He targeted young men, often marginalized, predominantly gay men of color, luring them back to his apartment with promises of money for modeling or simply companionship. Once there, he would drug them, then strangle them. But that wasn't the end. His ultimate goal was control, to create zombies who wouldn't leave him. He engaged in necrophilia, dismemberment, and disturbingly, cannibalism. He'd boil skulls, keep body parts in his freezer, and even had a barrel of acid. He'd take Polaroid pictures of the process. He said he wanted to consume his victims because it would keep them with him forever. The nightmare unfolded largely undetected for years. Neighbors complained about terrible smells. He'd claim his freezer was broken or the meat had gone bad. There were multiple instances where authorities had contact with Dahmer and heartbreakingly missed chances to stop him. The most egregious was in May 1991, when two police officers encountered a dazed, naked 14-year-old Konarak sent to some phone that he was trying to escape after Dahmer drilled a hole in his head. Dahmer convinced them it was just a lover's quarrel, and they returned Konarak back to him. Less than an hour later, Konarak was dead. It highlights a tragic lack of understanding and attention paid to the LGBTQ+ and minority communities at the time, which critics argue allowed Dahmer to operate for so long. The horror finally ended on the night of July 22, 1991. Tracy Edwards, a 32-year-old man, met Dahmer and went back to his apartment. Dahmer handcuffed him, threatened him with a knife, and told him he was going to eat his heart. But Edwards, despite being terrified, was able to fight back, punching Dahmer and escaping. He ran into the street and flagged down two Milwaukee police officers. Edwards led the officers back to Dahmer's apartment. The officers immediately noticed a foul smell. When they opened a bedside drawer, what they found was beyond comprehension. Polaroid photos of dismembered bodies, skulls, and a freezer full of human remains. Dahmer tried to fight and flee, but he was finally subdued and arrested. The discovery sent shockwaves not just through Milwaukee, but across the entire world. Once in custody, Dahmer confessed to everything, detailing his unspeakable crimes with a chilling lack of emotion. He was charged with 15 counts of murder in Wisconsin. It was a massive investigation, revealing the full extent of his depravity. Dahmer's trial in 1992 was a national sensation. He pleaded guilty but insane, meaning his lawyers argued he couldn't be held responsible due to mental illness. The testimony was gruesome, heartbreaking, and truly disturbing. Victims' families faced him in court, giving powerful impact statements. Ultimately, the jury found him sane and responsible for his actions. He was sentenced to 15 consecutive life terms, an additional life sentence for his first murder in Ohio, totaling over 900 years in prison. Jeffrey Dahmer was sent to Columbia Correctional Institution in Wisconsin. Prison was not a safe place for him. On November 28, 1994, while cleaning a gym bathroom, he was brutally bludgeoned to death by fellow inmate Christopher Scarver, who also killed another inmate, Jesse Anderson, that day. Scarver later claimed God told him to do it, and that Dahmer would taunt other inmates by molding food into human limbs and dripping ketchup to simulate blood. Dahmer was 34 years old when his reign of terror and his life finally ended. Dahmer's case forced a harsh spotlight on societal issues. The neglect of missing persons reports from marginalized communities, particularly gay men and minorities, and the failures of the justice system and probation. It sparked conversations about mental illness, evil, and what makes a monster. His name remains synonymous with unspeakable horror, a chilling reminder that sometimes the most terrifying monsters are the ones hiding in plain sight, behind a quiet demeanor. The story of Jeffrey Dahmer is undeniably difficult to hear, but it's important to understand. What aspects of his case do you find most haunting, or what do you think we can learn from it? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If you want to hear more stories, hit that subscribe button.